Something that I've been following for a hot minute. The Completionist with You Deserve Answers. Now, obviously, this is going to be something in regards to following up from the Open Hand Foundation, from claims and allegations made by individuals on the internet such as Mutahar, someone who I have been, very open that the whole napkin math, providing ballpark figures, I did feel was in a little bit of bad faith. I think that going through specific ranges, concrete numbers, rather than using, by his own admission, napkin math would have been a little more professional. However, all of that aside, what I wanted to do is kind of go through this as somebody who did watch The Completionist for a number of years, kind of compare and contrast information, as somebody who has a great interest in legal, such as following, Logan Paul and all that with, Lunchley Legal, Prime Legal, the lawsuit between him and CoffeeZilla. It's someone who deals with copyright on a daily basis, right? Very much wanted to see what this was, kind of get the information from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and really kind of come to my own educated conclusion. So get ready for a long one today.
Hey everyone, my name is Gerard Khalil. In 2012, I started my YouTube channel, That One Video Gamer, and for the last 13 years of my life, I have been completing games and making a lot of videos about the things that I absolutely love. On November 13th, 2023, two content creators named Carl Jobst and Mutahar Anas made videos detailing on how my family's charity, the Open Hand Foundation, had not made a contribution since its founding, despite numerous fundraisers and misleading statements by myself about charitable partners. Within a matter of days, and before I really had any opportunity to present any information of my own, the narrative had shifted. I was being accused of embezzlement and charity fraud, with Carl and Mutahar directing their viewers to report my family's charity to the authorities, prompting a criminal investigation by the Department of Justice.
So this is actually something that I did take extreme issue with as well, because there was an actual CTA, a call to action in Mutahar's videos. And don't get me wrong, it feels like I'm going to be, right now it feels like I'm very much against Mutahar and very much defending Gerard. I'm somewhere in the middle because I feel that on both sides, the wrong actions were taken. I think that Mutahar openly calling for people, a call to action to report the business, the charity to the IRS. Yes, that is technically within your ability to do, right? Absolutely. One would argue that is weaponizing an audience. One would argue that, especially with napkin math, if that is necessarily the best decision. And I mean, go back to reactions. We did, some 16 some hot honored reactions. Like, oh my God, words! I can't brain today. Bunch of reactions, and I remember talking about this near the time that this happened, where I did have contention with a weaponized call to action to just report to the IRS, right? So I guess in the end, though, I mean, the bureaucracy goes through. Clearly, there's a criminal investigation. I'm, assuming this video is going to be what we're going to see within this criminal investigation. But I think that sets a dangerous precedent, because what happens if, I don't know, Mutahar does napkin math and gets something wrong, and now someone CTAs that everyone calls, I don't know, insert organization here on Mutahar, right? Where is the reasonable boundary here? If there's a valid business concern, absolutely, there are avenues for that. And I don't think taking that away from people is the answer. I think the way in which it was done could have been handled a little more tactfully.
We were informed that the investigation officially wrapped up in the fall of 2024. All that remained was a meeting with the Department of Justice to clear up any lingering questions, such as why the Open Hand had been mass flagged in the first place.
Right.
I was constantly told by the Department of Justice that this is the final meeting, and the final meeting was right around the corner.
Okay.
But officially now, over a year has passed since then. I didn't want to speak publicly about this whole investigation until I had those final results in my hand.
Right.
Hence my silence all this time.
Right, makes
The
sense.
honest truth is that the Department of Justice will not respond to any emails, despite telling Open Hand's lawyers that they're interested in one final meeting to close the case.
Can you sue for this? Like, would this be governmental incompetence? Or, like, what would this be? I want you to just imagine, right? Because you have to have these lawyers on retainer. this will be our final meeting, and to go unread for 12 plus months? Can you sue for that? Oh, well, it's just bureaucracy. It's just paperwork, right? Except that you're still having to foot the bill. If this is the last meeting, why not just have the last meeting? Did I take stupid juice? Like, see that, and that's the thing, is when we talk about like legal, like imagine in that year time span, or how a year time span since this final meeting, right? Is what I'm understanding. How much damage has this done to his brand? How many people are still circulating things in regards to this and that? How many people are still citing Mutahar, and being unable to show whatever the final result of that investigation is? Can you sue for that? Is there someone that's held accountable for that? What happens at the, I'm assuming, federal level? Might be state. I don't actually know. This feels, if there's supposed to be a final meeting, just do the final meeting, Fivehead, is how I'm really approaching this.
It has been over a year waiting on this matter, and the fact of the matter is, I need to move on. Whenever I get this final documentation, whatever it says, I don't care what it is, I will share the results with whatever I am legally allowed to share as soon as I can. And I am still absolutely confident that the accusations of fraud and embezzlement will be proven false. However, even if we never broke the law, serious moral mistakes were still made by myself and the foundation.
Yeah, No, 100%. So if you say all proceeds go towards a thing, and this is why I haven't done anything, because I don't have everything set up to make sure I'm accounting for every single penny, right? Or how it was brought up that there were certain things in regards to there being a fee to be able to donate, right? I think it was due to the platform specifically that wasn't taking payments, right? Or the subs generated on the Purple app, right? Did all those get, funneled into the Open Hand Foundation? Yes, no, right? If the answer is no, yeah, that's a moral, it's a moral failing, right? Morals and ethics, just it doesn't interact with those well, right? And there is that social etiquette expectation. If I were to run a charity event for whatever, right, and it's all proceeds from this go towards this, and I see a surge in subs, right, the expectation, whether it's said or not, is that money directly goes to that purpose, right? I think that's pretty fair universally.
The Open Hand took far too long to donate. We never explained why it took so long until after everyone called us out. Mm-hmm. And I lied about this for all of IndieLand's years, both knowingly in 2023 and unknowingly in all the years before.
Not a good look.
But it doesn't matter what kind of explanation either I or anyone else involved might provide. This happened, and rightfully so, it pissed off everyone. Mm-hmm. To my viewers and donors, friends and collaborators, I am so sorry for hiding the truth. It was selfish, full stop. I want you all to have the context as to how everything happened, but nothing I've said so far is an excuse, and neither is anything else in this video. All of this is on me. Even if it wasn't exactly how I imagined things would go, my goal always was to make sure this money got donated to the right place as quickly as possible.
So to me, that kind of comes across as a nothing burger. So it is meant to take accountability, right? Responsibility for said actions. But that is also kind of it goes without saying, right? What if I said something like I'm responsible for my own content and what I say in my videos? Yeah, it's just kind of how that works, right? I'm probably reading too deep into it, if I'm being honest.
And I'm immensely thankful that it got done. So, with that in mind, I'm sure many of you still have a ton of questions, especially about why this happened in the first place and where I've been for the past year. I want to take some time to tell my side of the story and how we got here, but I also want to clear up many of the false accusations made against me, along with addressing the individuals who not only broke this story, but pushed it into the realm of conspiracy. So, yes, just in case all of you are wondering, this is in fact scripted. I am reading from a script. But I want to be clear. The words that you're hearing today are me and only me. There's nobody else trying to influence what I say here. I just want to be sure that everything I say is accurate to the receipts I'm providing, to my own experiences, and most importantly, that you are hearing the truth straight from me, not behind lawyers, other content creators, or voiceovers disembodied by random gameplay footage. So for now, let's go back to where all this began, with my mom.
I mean, I got to give him props in a certain aspect, right? I do have to give him props for, hi, these are my words. These are this is what I believe, right? And that's the thing, is if it came out that this was ghost written, right? If this came out that someone else did write this, absolutely, though, that's a huge, big fat L, right? And then that gets into, well, why should we trust his word if he lied about the Open Hand Foundation, right? Then, sure, we'll humor this. Assuming that this is being presented in good faith as his own words that he wrote, right? Well, I will take it at face value, right? Much as I feel taking something like Mutahar saying something napkin math at face value as well, despite just pulling seemingly just random numbers out of the air.
I was young. I lost my mom to frontotemporal dementia, and she lived with that disease for roughly 16 years. When she passed away in 2013, my family officially launched a charity organization called the Open Hand Foundation, with the mission of raising awareness and money for dementia research, educational tools, and helping families. We saw a real need after the frustrations we had personally experienced working with UCSF and how they handled our contributions, both financially and with my mom's own body parts. Before my mom passed away, my family was assured of how incredibly helpful her donation would be and what a difference it would make to the research. Well, imagine our frustration when, after donating our mom's brain and spinal cord, along with several thousands of dollars, we were told that her body parts were pretty much useless by a staff of completely different people that we didn't even know anymore. It made my family feel like we had just given away my mom's body parts for nothing, with the contribution feeling more like a feel-good courtesy than a worthwhile sacrifice.
So I think, it depends. It depends on what the context of this is, right? So the person necessarily working at the charity, and maybe doctors, nurses, specialists affiliated with it, might not be the ones who receive the donated body parts in the end, right? I mean, I don't have enough required understanding of how the medical field operates. So let's hypothetically say, based in California, right? Let's say the body was donated in California, and the body parts in question were required in some place like Texas, Idaho, Oregon, whatever, right? And then inevitably it gets to, doctor in, Texas, doctor in Idaho, doctor in Oregon, right? And they're the ones giving that feedback. So I don't know how to take this without that required expertise in the medical field. I think that making any snap judgment or making any sort of definitive commentary is a little outside my wheelhouse, and I'd feel disingenuous making it, and I would defer to medical personnel in this specific situation.
This is where the Open Hand Foundation began, and with it, the need for knowing how charitable contributions actually get spent. And as for me, I didn't really get involved into any of this until I reached a place in my career where I really felt like I could use my platform to make a big difference.
Right.
In 2018, my best friends and I created Indieland, a 24 to 60-hour live stream event where we would play and promote indie games with the people who made them, raising money for charity with all of you at home watching, cheering us on as I went through tons of gross physical challenges at my own expense. Indieland went on for 6 years, and my team and I were so thrilled to see our little show succeed. However, after we finished our 5th show in November of 2022, I spoke with my family about all the good we were doing, and I really wanted to get a representative from one of our charity partners to come and speak at Indieland 2023. Only then did I learn that the Open Hand Foundation had never made a contribution since its founding, and there were no official partners.
I mean, yeah, like this would be devastating. Like I'm trying to put yourself in a situation like that. I can tell you from my standpoint, my voice would definitely get raised. People would be speaking to me, or I would be if they refuse to speak to me. I would be following the proper law enforcement personnel route. Like, absolutely. No, I would have a zero tolerance for that. not just from a moral and ethical standpoint and moral and ethical failings, but like damage control. Crap, this is literally going to affect me now because I have, put myself on the line, and now this is going to negatively affect me. And like that's the thing, is that's seen as selfish, right? But I think like it's fine to be selfish sometimes. It's fine to have that selfishness, right? To like, this can also, it's depending on context. It depends if the reason you're doing it is solely out of selfish desire to protect your brand, i.e. corporate status, or if it's like, I literally had nothing to do with this. I am honestly a victim in this. And, I want to make sure that I'm clearing my name and doing everything that I can to be moral and ethical in this situation, despite being literally thrust into this.
All the money was sitting there, untouched and accounted for, ready to be donated. But at the time, there was a massive disagreement between myself and my family. I personally thought it was important that the money be donated right away. Meanwhile, my family's perspective was very different than mine. They had been negotiating with several organizations to establish contracts to take a bulk sum of money as a restricted donation. These conversations revealed that many of these potential organizations were happy to take the money, but didn't want to track what they saw as a low sum compared to the 6 to 7 figure amounts they were used to receiving from mostly corporate interest groups.
And that would be a problem. Not necessarily defending holding on to the money, right? This would be a problem to me, if I'm being completely honest, right? Like, and that's the thing, right? If I wanted to say donate, say $30 to an organization, right? Bro, what organization is going to want to take $30? And I'm sure there are some, right? But that's the problem, right? Well, you're not donating this multi-million dollar sum to us. We don't want this. It's like, I feel like that is the corporate side of that coming out, because then it's a mutually beneficial thing, right? That leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
After a lot of tough conversations over the years, my family settled on a goal of raising $1 million before donating, hoping that this would be a massive milestone that would help organizations to take the foundation way more seriously. But I didn't know about any of this, and I didn't care. I wanted it to go to a reputable charity that would do great things with it right away. That means for the next 12 months, I knew about the money not being donated and was having constant conversations to get it to the right place, trying to repair relationships and negotiate in good faith with several different potential benefactors. Since it was now up to me to get this money donated, I needed to stay on the board of directors for open hand, at least until the donation was officially made.
So here's the thing. I think this would be an interesting thing to consider. What would happen if Gerard ended up pushing for the donation and he was kicked from the board of directors? Do you think that would have gone well for him, or do you think that would have been detrimental for him? Think about what we think about the situation now. And what if Gerard came out and said, yeah, the money was like podcast bro status, someone's interviewing him on a podcast, and he's like, I knew that this money was sitting there, but I tried pushing for it, and eventually I was removed from the board of directors because I pushed for this, right? Do you think... So obviously there's the family dynamic, and family dynamic gets weird. I've talked about this a lot, right? Where, no, you are not my friend. You are my mother. You are my father, right? You are family, right? That's a little different, right? With a friend, you can kind of back and forth and kind of check each other's worldview and stuff. With family, it's kind of like it is because I says so, right? Go do it. If you don't like it, tough, right? I'm sure, phrases a lot of us have heard, right? And that becomes the difficulty here, because yes, business and family don't mix, and business should supersede family. But because inherently this is a familial issue, that's where this is going to get muddled. And it's a hard decision to make either way, because you could get, kicked off the board of directors for something you believed in, especially having something, like his mother, who was greatly impacted by this and an inspiration to do this, right? Also, potential being locked out because his father does whatever, right? Not my business, if I'm being completely honest. He does business things, right? Does that mean that now Gerard is locked out of potential business avenues and business ventures because he wanted this to get donated ASAP and make sure that it was donated, over and done with, to fulfill his word, instead of having some sort of corporate contract, right? Well, I say corporate contract. Contracts are fine. Like fishing for a beneficial contract, like there's a lot to consider in that. And I think that when we talk about being critical of the situation, I think that we need to, once again, not necessarily defending one side or the other, I think we need to consider these things.
It was around this point that I realized that I was in way over my head. I had just lost my job at G4, and finances were a complete mess all around for myself and my company. I was scrambling.
G4 wouldn't have been his fault, though. Wasn't that somebody who tried to bait an audience or something? I vaguely remember the situation.
To get the Completionist restructured with new ideas and a new tone.
Right.
And I was practically traveling or doing some work event almost every single week, almost the entire year. But everything was up in the air, and all of it was on me, all at once. And on top of all this was the news that I now had to fix a problem that had been unknowingly brewing for several years. However, even at this point, I couldn't just do whatever I wanted. And this is where the real conflict started. I tried my best to express how upset I was, how upset all of you would rightfully be, and that this could cost me and so many people who worked with me everything we had created and built together.
I read this as him exemplifying the situation. Other people are absolutely going to read this as him trying to put off blame on his audience.
And I was simply brushed aside. I had learned the hard way that the charity world moves at a glacial pace, and I've been going around touting all these organizations and all the good we'll be doing for many years, only for all of it to be a bunch of empty promises. Even after I stepped up, my best efforts to donate as fast as possible would never be good enough, as every decision I wanted to make now had to be approved by a long list of people on both the open hand side and the potential benefactors that I have been speaking with.
Ah, yes, the bureaucracy. How many of these people are positions that are like, the redundant position thing? How there's so many job titles and it's like, what is your actual job description? And is your job description just a variant of an existing job description? Look, I'm not going to pretend to understand the charity world if I'm being completely honest. At the very least, watching enough Critical Drinker and pointing out just the number of redundant roles in Hollywood that are inflating movie productions. If it's anything like that, and anything like I've seen with, like roles working in finance, roles working in, what do you call it? The service industry, right? How there's just like, why do you have this title? Like, what do you actually do? Like, are you my manager? Like, what are you, right? That would not surprise me if there was that level of bureaucracy in something like this, which does corrupt and pervert the inherently expected good nature of charity work.
So I feel that some context on my family might be helpful right here. I'm the youngest of 5 in a first-generation Lebanese immigrant household. My dad has always loomed large in every aspect of my life, and that absolutely extended to my own experiences with the Open Hand Foundation, and at times, even my own business. The expectations were that I should have been an engineer, or I should have been a lawyer.
Sure.
Instead, I'm a video producer who plays video games on the internet for a living.
I mean, who is it again? Who is the World War II art quote? I always forget who said this. It's the something about if we don't have art, what do we have left? Yeah, what are we fighting for? Is it Was it Churchill who said this? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to look this up offhand. World War II. If we don't have art quote question mark. I think it was Churchill, but he was talking about how if we don't have art, then what are we fighting for, right? Like cause art program. No, it couldn't have been Churchill. That was in the American side of things. But yeah, it's like, something we need to cut the art projects, and saying we can't cut the art projects because if we don't have that, then what are we actually fighting for, right? I'm sorry, my history is failing me right now. There's so many things that I react to and are in my brain. I apologize. Point being, why it's relevant to this, right? Like, artists are, yes, underappreciated, but they are literally what keep people going. Whether that's designing some weird new luxury car or handbag, whether that's designing the new fashion, whether that's, whether you engage in the Mr. Beastification of YouTube or not, just entertaining people in what I do, right? I mean, I wouldn't necessarily class myself an artist, right? But being able to sit there and try to have conversations and provide additional context and commentary on things, right? You outputting a product for others to engage with, and especially because art is very inspirational, whether it's music, whether it's a painting, whether it's something like anime, right? art has the ability to touch so many aspects in our lives. And yes, while it doesn't get the big bucks like being a doctor, being a lawyer, etc. gets, it still doesn't make it any less important. I think that's an idealistic view, and I will definitely take that on the chin. I think that is a very idealistic view, because you can only draw so many anime girls before you're just tired, and drawing anime girls won't necessarily pay the bills in a lot of cases, right? But like, I think that's and the family context makes sense. Me personally, full transparency, it doesn't really matter what your family is or who it does or who they are, right? You could be Chinese, Japanese, Lebanese, Haitian, Mexican, Spanish. Bro, I don't really care. It's not a negative. It's just a thing that I don't really like take into account. In this situation, I don't think it's being used as an excuse, rather as it being not even, I wouldn't say justification, an insight into why he thinks certain ways. And I would say this from the understanding that I'm a neurodivergent individual who overthinks and hyperanalyzes everything to try to come up with conclusions, cause and effect. Why does something happen? Now, I also want to further clarify, full transparency, I'm not in the business of trying to say someone's neurodivergent or not. No one should ever take anything I say with that intent. I don't know if he's neurodivergent or not. It's not my business. Personally, I don't really care. From me, a self-proclaimed, diagnosed neurodivergent individual, right? I got that actual medical diagnosis. I'll take that W rather than self-diagnosed, right? That is how I would break this down and answer the question, why is he bringing this up? He's trying to provide a supporting argument, research paper status, to actions taken and what conclusions were or what conclusions happened.
If you ever watched the Completionist live show from a few years ago, then all of this should sound pretty familiar to you. I did not have the final call on any major decisions when it came to the open hand and its finances. I was one of many people in charge. To my family, I was seen as the video game guy, not the business guy or the charity guy. Regardless, the outcomes were absolutely my responsibility because all of you at home donated your hard-earned money and time and did so with your trust in me in mind. So when I learned the truth, I made it my goal that no matter what happened, the money had to get donated. There was no other outcome that I would allow. And that's where the real nasty core to all of this is. Nobody embezzled or touched any money. No crime was committed or covered up here. And the results of the Department of Justice's investigation will hopefully one day be proof of this.
I would, is sustain the correct word? What's the legal definition for sustain? This is speculation, right? Like this is genuine speculation. Support or maintain, I guess I would say I sustain that this is speculation, right? But I guess I don't know. I don't know legal terms, if I'm being completely honest. Scratch that then. But no, this is, I personally would not come to that conclusion. Like, sure, he probably has stuff that he's under NDA that he can't talk about, right? Sure, right. He's been in the meetings, or ideally, hopefully has been in the meetings, right? Has probably more insight than generally we do, right? Would be pretty reasonable to assume. But that being said, like, until verdict, right? Until final meeting, that is technically speculation, as far as I'm aware.
The decision to wait to donate until the foundation raised $1 million, along with the struggle of figuring out why that was necessary in the first place, should have absolutely been communicated with all of you. The Open Hand Foundation, and myself especially, should have been more transparent with its struggles and its goals, period. A week after IndieLand 2023 had wrapped up, and before I could get back to the donation efforts and conversations I was having, my heart stopped when I saw an email to the Open Hand Foundation came from a one Carl Jobst. I'm very familiar with Carl's work, as he had been known at the time to be a groundbreaking creator that claimed to take down cheaters, liars, and scammers. And I knew what was coming next. A few days later, on November 10th, I received a message from another creator, Mutahar Anas, also known as Some Ordinary Gamers. I respected and trusted Mutahar, so when he asked if I wanted to hop on a Discord call to talk about a discrepancy with some of the Open Hand Foundation's publicly available documents, I agreed, thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe we could chat this out and clear the air, no problem.
So here's the thing as well. You can also just choose to not contact somebody, right? Like, I mean, I also have I'll hang out with some of my friends and stuff, right? I'll hang out with the mods. Because friend and mod is generally pretty mutually exclusive together, right? Like I hang out with Baka on the Purple app all the time. Like we'll play, ended up playing through most of Silent Hill Forte with him in it, right? And we just chat every now and again, right? We're on the same call and we chat. But it's like, I don't know, if I emailed anyone I've reacted to, right? They're not obligated to respond to me. A few have, right? And, someone like CoffeeZilla has said, yeah, hey, all I ask is that if people react to my content, it's not like I'm doing right here, right? In one full, letting the full video play out, right? Yeah, cool. Had Mike Burnfire email back, and they seem pretty hesitant about React content. It's why in part why I took those videos down, because if I don't want not inviting that, right? But I mean, there's plenty of individuals I've emailed, plenty of creators, and they never responded. So that gets into the kind of the paradox of if it's like Schrodinger's consent to like reacting to content. What do you do using context clues? And even then, sometimes context clues, like what is it, Yu-Gi-Oh! Poker Night by Mashed, did that. That got copyright striked before it even went live. And then I emailed them trying to find legal documentation, and then they gave me some weird bot response of like, I'm out of the office, and it was already past the date they said they'd be back. So I don't know what happened with that. Forgotten Weapons as well ended up copyright striking me. So it's like, that's the whole Schrodinger's like reaction consent conversation that's not really for here. But like, bro, there's so much going on in a day. And I can't imagine somebody like the Russian badge here. I can't imagine somebody like Markiplier. I can't imagine someone like just people I've reacted to, because they're busy, right? And I also don't want to be that guy, because I did get this from Twitter, where I did tag a VTuber once upon a time, and they told me never to tag them, and I kind of had like a short blurb explaining why. And so I just don't really tag or message people. Right, which is kind of counterintuitive to how the industry works, because you're supposed to connect with each other, right? You'll have, Gerard having a guest star with somebody else, right? And then you'll have like Matt Pat having certain people on, or Did You Know Gaming, right? Or you have someone like, VShojo Cast, I guess former VShojo Cast, like Centrea, get together with someone like Henya, right? She was also VShojo. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like it's all about connectivity and connecting and networking, which I don't really do. I mean, if somebody wants my attention, yeah, they'll reach out. If I'm being completely honest, they will reach out and they will ask something. But I mean, circling back to why this is relevant, right? It's you don't have to acknowledge this. If you have someone like asking you directly about a discrepancy, you don't have to respond to that. You can instead go to your, legal team that you'll have on retainer. You can go to personnel whose literal obligation is not necessarily job, but obligation it is to oversee this. And hey, I'm getting a message about a discrepancy. You want to talk? Let's talk about this, right? Like, and obviously, of course, the year leading up to it, it seems that like this was known. You shouldn't have to respond to this, right? And I think this is going to be seen as like a pass for like letting behavior slide. Not really. This is just how business works, right? Do you call your bank and say, I was going to say this. Do you call your bank and say something to the person who picks up over the line that's just like, whoa? But then again, I've also literally worked that job. And yes, I've had somebody straight up call me a PDF file because the institution I worked at did a drag show donation or something like that, right? And I'm like, I want to like just ban this man so quick for ever daring to call me that, despite things that I've personally gone through and sent people to jail, 2 people to jail for. Okay, so that man can kindly get bent. But this is an event stream on that I've talked about in the past, right? Like there's official channels for this reason, right? There's official ways to handle this. And I feel that this very much is a way to set one up for failure. And what happens? He doesn't answer. What Mutahar puts out a video. What does he say? We reached out to Gerard for comment, and we couldn't really get a hold of him. And that's the end of it, right? I feel Gerard runs into the same problem I do, where somebody will say I pause a reaction too much, and I tell them to go away, go watch the original video. Links is in the description for a reason. And I realistically, I shouldn't even be responding or dignifying that, right? I shouldn't be responding to that. So I think him and I run into the same issue in that regard, where I will definitely respond to things that I really should have no business responding to.
Mutahar never once asked about the laws or regulations that Carl had asked about, so I had no reason to think they were collaborating together, especially since they had no prior history together online.
Sure.
I hopped on the call, assuming that this would just be the two of us, until my surprise, I saw Carl join. The rest of what's publicly available to all of you is essentially me having a panic attack while trying to be transparent with two creators I respected at the time.
I mean, honestly, you still could just hang up. Hey, you wanted to speak alone? I don't know what's going on here. This feels like, this feels like this is trying to take something out of context. Have a good day. Click, right? What are they going to do with that?
All at the behest of throwing my friends and family under several buses. I saw the headlines coming, and I spiraled, losing control of everything. I did my best to reiterate my family's infighting, the struggles with finding a donor for a restricted donation, and that no matter what was going to happen, all the money was accounted for and ready to be donated. And they even acknowledged that there was no evidence of embezzlement and that it's not even what they were asking about. So it gave me some hope that this whole thing could be recovered in some way.
Yeah, I mean, when the two of them, Summoner Gamers and whoever the other individual is, when they did, the call felt a little different to what they put out. It felt like there was a tonal shift.
I'm keeping it to the charity and like the money and why it hasn't moved. I won't personally be mentioning anybody family related and the personal hell that you honestly have to go through. That's like a fucking no-no for me personally. On my end, and I'm sure on Carl's end, that's something that obviously I think we can abide by. That's just an ethics thing for any journalist, really. The very big silver lining is the money is there, according to every PP filing that I've seen. It can all be like done right, you know. This isn't a situation of actual embezzlement or, you know, money being moved to the fucking Cayman Islands or some cryptocurrency offshore. This is a situation.
I don't understand why he's speaking for this long, though. Like, what legal authority is he? Like, I understand he's trying to iterate his point. I get this is supposed to be meant as a gotcha moment, but like, I mean, you have to understand, right? Like, I get like 3K views of video if I'm lucky, right? Like, if if people don't tell him he's ranting for too long, what? Like, sure, relevance, I guess, you know, not being embezzled out of the country, sure, but condense your bullet points, my man.
Situation that can be rectified for very positive sakes. But yeah.
I was terrified and I should have kept my mouth shut. But some part of me believed that if I was honest right from the get-go, maybe I could get out ahead of this and it could end up just being more of a cautionary situation for people to know. 3 days later, Monday, November the 13th, Mutahar and Carl released their videos and the story was broken. It made donating even more important, but even more difficult due to the new online reputation of the Open Hand Foundation and myself. Many of these organizations we'd been speaking with suddenly wanted nothing to do with us, legally informing us to keep our distance, and the situation quickly became desperate.
Well, this is why you have a lawyer prepare a statement, right? This is why you have prepared statements, and why, honestly, even going into a call like this, and I feel that, you know, Mutahar and other individual are probably going to have a harder time of doing this in the future as well, because people will just not respond to them, right? Like, I feel this is a situation in which Gerard definitely gave out information without consulting any sort of lawyer, without consulting, anyone whose job it would be to manage PR, right, mitigate risk, right, and they left and they capitalized on that, right. I mean, that's just how that works, right. But I feel that this is going to be a tipping point where I feel that if they try to do this with someone else, right, they could just simply not answer, and then a video title of, we talked to Gerard about, this alleged embezzlement, right? Or this alleged charity fraud. Does that quite hit the same as, we think that this creator is guilty of charity fraud, right? Okay, you think about it? Nah, whatever. I mean, sure, I guess I'll watch for an opinion piece. Versus, oh, you actually talked to the man and then have quotes, right? Interesting how that works, right?
Thankfully, my brother and I were able to secure a meeting with AFTD the very next day, and by November 29th of 2023, the Association of Frontotemporal Dementia received $600,000 from the Open Hand Foundation.
Sure.
Soon after this donation was made, I resigned from my role on the board of directors, ending my relationship with my family's efforts in the Open Hand Foundation.
I mean, that takes a lot. I mean, considering family background, and I don't know enough about his family dynamic, if I'm being honest. Once again, just kind of just blurs to me, if I'm being honest. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's like things that I don't personally consider. I think this could be seen as speaking to his character and integrity, but there's also an argument that this could be said as a situation is foobar. I need to distance myself to damage control, and maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe it's both honesty, integrity, and a need to distance himself from the foobarness. Right? It's hard to really say something definitively.
The money that remained in the Open Hands account was intended to cover any future operating expenses or potential legal fees. That would prove to be important since the very next day on November 30th, we received a notice from the California Department of Justice that the Open Hand Foundation was now being investigated.
Damn, that was quick. California DOJ within, 48 hours? Locked on that? Bro, talk about an expedited, case. Wow.
All receipts were being sent over, and per legal advice, everyone's mouths were to be kept shut.
That's standard
The
procedure.
main priority for me was, at the very least, the $459,129.90 raised by Indieland donors would finally go to the original cause of dementia research in honor of my mother. At this point, my family and I were completely overwhelmed with the noise coming in. And as a result, we brought in several different professionals to help us determine how to even best respond to the ever-growing list of allegations.
Oh, yeah.
This is what finally led to my response.
Doesn't his father have his golf has actual big brands like Coca-Cola and Monster, right? This is not a nothing burger.
On December 9th of 2023. All the information that I'm sharing with you right now and going to be sharing with you, this is what I wanted to say in that video. At the time, the Open Hands Foundation's legal counsel instructed me not to say or share anything because nobody knew what would be relevant to the pending investigation by the government.
Right.
I was essentially handcuffed from telling the full story because our lawyers instructed me to not address any information potentially related to the ongoing investigation, which included receipts, potential evidence, and even fully admitting to any and all of my mistakes. When this response video failed to inspire folks to trust and believe in me still, I knew that my support systems were going to go away very quickly. My financial, legal, and community support disappeared overnight, with a lot of my friendships, both personal and professional, going away with it as well.
Right.
It was clear that I had failed and my options were extremely limited. Over the course of the next 2 months, almost all the employees at That One Video Gamer were let go, and I spent most of my time clearing out the now defunct old office.
Right.
I decided to continue making content as a way just to keep the lights on despite my legal silence. But by the summer of 2024, I eventually stopped producing new content altogether. I would go on to disappear from the lives of practically everyone I knew because I thought that in my own self-hating isolation that that's what everyone wanted from me. But in reality, I ended up doing a lot more harm than good by letting everyone else deal with the public responses. And that was extremely selfish of me. Without being able...
I mean, there's only so much you can do, though, right? I wonder if some of this is just self-loathing behavior. I retract that, because I don't have enough understanding of him, how he operates, and I'm most certainly no sort of counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist. So I think that's incredibly bad faith. I'm going to retract that. I wonder, I mean, like if you're told that you can't talk about a thing, and obviously, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, he's going through a rough time regardless, right? I think we can look at the human element and go, yeah, no, realistically, anybody in this situation would probably be going through a rough time, right? I think the smart decision, not necessarily the decision your heart wants, is to follow, obviously, NDAs, to follow legal advice by actual legal professionals. And I think that keeping your mouth shut and letting other people handle it is the smarter of the decision, but that doesn't necessarily make it the easy decision.
To truly apologize and take 100% full accountability for the things that I was responsible for. It felt like no one wanted to ever hear from me, let alone trust me ever again. To my moderators, my biggest fans that have rolled with me since day one, and especially to anyone who ever donated to IndieLand in any way, shape, or form. So many of you trusted me, my words, and my reputation in what I stood for. I know a lot of you have left this community, are hurt and feel betrayed, and were even threatened or harassed by people online just for saying that you still believed in me.
Which, to clarify, that's not appropriate. That's not okay. I get that people are terminally online. As somebody who still cites the comment of gonna quote unquote aim for the tall anime boy in Idaho, right? You know, obviously the illusion here of it being a firearm because it was a firearm video, if I remember correctly. No, that's not okay. That it is. You can disagree with someone. You can disagree with something. When we start getting to the level of spicy threats, as I will call them, especially when, remember the Destiny 2 community person received, I think it was a community manager, ended up getting a very spicy threat by a Destiny 2 player, and they took legal action against him because of that. Like, there are consequences for saying things. You can't just say you're going to stick a spicy cylindrical object in my mailbox. Yes, you can, but like there are consequences. Right, the Unsubscribed podcast has gone over this a number of times. Right, there are consequences for like saying things like that. Right, like no, you can disagree with somebody. Absolutely, no, you cannot send threats or threaten people like this. That's not okay. And universally, we should all be on the same page. Right, it's like your parents getting in a shouting match, but if one of them throws an actual punch or a smack, right, then it's a different ballgame, right? Initiative has been rolled D&D style, right? Like, we stop before that, right? You can verbally disagree. You could vehemently disagree with somebody. But, right? Like, you can't escalate it past a certain point. That's not reasonable. That's not rational.
I put all of you in an unbelievably difficult situation, and for that, I am deeply sorry. To my past employees, I am so sorry that you've had to endure the sudden hardship of needing to find new employment with a resume that had my name and company insignia on it. You trusted me to manage That One Video Gamer and everything related to our brand in a way that would keep us going for the next decade. All of you gave me your blood, sweat, and tears, and some of you for the full 13 years of our existence. I am forever grateful for all of you, and I am so sorry that this ended up becoming the worst possible scenario for all of us.
I honestly, and this is a little bit of a tangent off to the side, so bear with me. I think that YouTube, especially from an investment standpoint, like there's obviously like the Mr. Beastification of YouTube and stuff, right? But like, I think, because what I do without editors. Like, yeah, I put out some pretty, I would say lazy content, right? Even though I provide commentary, pausing, thoughtful commentary, right? Like, it's lazy compared to what other VTubers put out, what other people put out, right? This is not scripted, right? So like I put out, yes, a lot of work, but it's the effect of like deluge of work that people consider pretty lazy and pretty average, right? But I mean, my overhead's pretty low in that aspect because like, yeah, I don't have employees. I don't have an editor. I don't have a script writer, right? I don't have, a manager managing brand deals, PR, etc., right? I think that we'll see a shift, and this is a prediction of mine. I think we'll see a shift back to more rounded and smaller personalities eventually. Once once people start getting exhausted from the constant Mr. Beastification and overstimulation of YouTube. I do think that there is a place for grounded conversation. I think there's a place for smaller communities. I do think that there is a lot of charm to someone who kind of does things by themselves or maybe with just a couple of other people, and moving away from those big team productions, just from just if nothing else, from an actual cost benefit overhead standpoint, right? If you're spending, say, I don't know, $50,000 on a video, right? Could you be spending not $50,000 on a video if you have the right skill set, right? And to like, it depends. I think there's a number of considerations to be made here, but I'm going to put a capstone on that subject for the time being.
To Fraser Perez Don, Patrick Stingline, and Michael Barity, you've always been my best friends. Your relentless support has always meant the world to me. Indieland, and so much of TOVG's ambition and drive was from the three of you and your dreams. You dreamed as big as I did, if not bigger, and contributed to our success. I will always be in your debt, and my heart is so heavy for how this ruined your lives and the lives of your fellow employees. I will find a way somehow, someday, to reconcile and seek redemption with all of you, if you will allow me to. I want to especially apologize to the Super Beard Brothers, the Scary Game Squad, the Friends Per Second podcast, and all of the guests and indie game developers that appeared at Indieland for the long road of chaos they had to endure and will continue to endure because of all of this. I don't expect forgiveness from anyone who watches this, but I do want all of you to know that I am doing everything in my power to make it right. And on that note, I do want to talk a little bit about the progress update on AFTD's fight against dementia and how all the money you all donated is helping real people today.
Okay.
In July of 2024, AFTD sent OpenHand a report of what our contribution was going towards in compliance with the terms of the restricted donation previously negotiated upon. And I'll have that full report in the box down below, but I do want to touch on a few things that I'm very excited about.
So there's actual big boy names in here. Like I don't know who these people are, but there's actual names in here. I'm assuming this is all above board. I'm assuming this would be public information. Making sure there's not actual redacted or protected information in here.
First off, when we negotiated our donation with AFTD, an outside party matched another $200,000 to our donation through one of AFTD's matching programs.
Sure.
So the total at the end of the day was actually $800,000 that went to dementia research, education, and care.
Okay.
This money was distributed through a wide variety of grants to several different researchers around the country, studying both chemical and social questions surrounding dementia, FTD, and all related disorders. Alongside this, one specific grant was awarded to the Respite Care Financial Assistance Program. Now, this helps to alleviate the financial burden of those diagnosed with FTD via direct cash grants for victims and their families. At the end of June of 2024, AFTD distributed 753 grants as a part of this program. That means there's 753 individual families who receive direct assistance hiring professional caregivers, enrolling in care programs, and purchasing supplies like shoes, clothes, and technology, and so much more. Now, this is a very detailed report with a ton of scientific terminology, but if you ever donated to Indieland over the years, then this report is for you. It's your money helping these families through both new research and relief funding, and it is making an actual genuine difference to so many people. For whatever it's still worth, I want to genuinely thank each and every one of you who donated over the years. Thank you so much for your compassion and generosity, sincerely. On top of all of this, the Open Hand Foundation has committed to donate to AFTD for many years to come, as long as they have money to operate with $50,000 already having been contributed this year alone. Given that this amount was so much smaller than the last donation, they asked to not have any big press releases around this time. Even though I'm not a part of the Open Hand anymore, it makes me so happy to know that the foundation is continuing to donate and hopefully start to rebuild some of the trust. Donors, in the end, if you donated to Indieland, your money went to charity and only charity. That was the promise, that was the goal, and we got there. I want to reiterate that at the end of the day, I was not trying to use or abuse my power as an influencer, and the intent was always to raise money for charity and never to take any of it. The memory and legacy of my mother is one of the most important things to me, and truly to this day, despite her passing, I do not think that I have gotten over the hardships and the trauma that I've experienced in my life with her and her illness. She always taught me to do good. And I was trying to live through her to do good, and I'm still trying to do good to this day. You, as a viewer, deserve the facts, and especially the truth. That's why I want to clarify as many of the allegations against me as I can that are absolutely false. First, I want to address the idea that the Open Hand could quickly just donate the money the same way you can just click donate on a charity website or Venmo or PayPal a friend.
Almost everyone is screaming at them just to donate the money, which should be pretty easy to do.
One thing you'll see is they'll ask me to gift an amount that is as low as $35.
The short answer is no. If we wrote a check to a charity with no agreements on how that money gets spent or how it's tracked, we would never have received a report detailing how our donors' money was being put to use. It
Interesting. So it's kind of like a real-time audit, kind of?
would likely have gone to funding administrative costs like accounting fees and
Right.
executive salaries. It had to be restricted to make sure that it actually went to dementia research. And negotiating with many of these organizations is really tough when you aren't donating tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and that goes into an image thing, goes into we are going to be, because you are donating such a large amount, we are willing to kind of, not necessarily bend the rules, but be more accommodating, right? Of, I will donate 10 million to you, but this must be used for equipment specifically or something like that. And it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? Donating 600,000, this must be used for equipment. And it's like, that feels like a harder sell, right? I think that's how I read that.
To us, $600,000 was an astronomical amount of money, especially for me and my community.
Right.
But in the charity world, that's small potatoes. There's a ton more to this whole thing, but that's about the best explanation that I can personally provide because I am not a 501c3 lawyer or accountant. This stuff is unbelievably complex and it takes time to get it right.
I mean, you could have someone like, there's like Legal Eagle could cover this, probably wouldn't. A civil rights lawyer. There's another one. There's one who covers a lot of VTuber stuff, right? But I mean, like something like that would be perfect. Like they know someone who is a charity lawyer, right? And like there, cool. No, we can 100% conform or deny that these restrictions exist, or that it would be this easy, right? Thus, it would either Mudahar and other person, or I genuinely can't remember his name. I'm sorry. Mudahar or other person saying, well, this would just be that easy, right? Could either, either support that or debunk that, right?
Simply put, it was functionally impossible for us to just donate the money in a website's donate button section while being responsible to the people who donated to us and the cause that we represented. That obviously does not excuse the fact that it took far too long to donate.
Correct.
But hopefully this at least explains why, even once you find a benefactor, it's still a very tedious process. Next, I want to talk about Twitch Bits.
I mean, this honestly opens it up for like, if you want to donate to anything else, when you're checking out at the store, you want to donate to this, or, you're at the drive-thru, I want to donate to this, or, even if I had a donate button, right? How is that being used, right? Like, I think that opens up a lot of questions, and especially if it's a big streamer now, this opens up a lot of questions with how that's being used. And I think it also opens up the concern with why is there so much big money and big influence going into charity work if you have a sizable sum of money, right? 600,000 is nothing to scoff at, but people are not really willing to look at that. I think that this begets more conversations and tells more about the sphere of charity work than I think most people would realize. I don't have confirmation on that, obviously, but this does ask some really good questions.
And Twitch subscriptions. If you don't know how bits and subs work, viewers can donate money in the form of Twitch bits, as well as subscribe to a Twitch streamer for perks like emotes and private streams. This money then gets split with Twitch, and the remaining balance then comes to the Twitch streamer at the end of the month. During the weeks of Indieland, all bits and subs that we received on the channel were put towards the donation goal throughout the event. I'm sure many of you have seen a lot of clips and memes at this point over the years where I have said we don't touch any bits or subs. Technically speaking, I do have to interact with them because I have to claim the income that comes to me and my company, and any money that Twitch pays out is income regardless of where we'll end up going later on. However, either myself or my brother, sometimes referencing a meme name during the stream, referencing something that was taking place at the time in the stream, would donate various amounts of money that match what we had received from Twitch viewers in real time up to that point, directly to our Tiltify page. That way, the on-screen totals would match and no amount would ever get forgotten. If there was any discrepancy at the time, we made sure to donate extra to ensure accuracy.
Right. I think that the way you do this, like, because I feel you open yourself up to problems if you're trying to go multiple different sources like bits, subs, etc., especially if you have multiple different channels through different providers like Stripe and stuff, right? I think that there's a lot to manage there, and unless you're having someone manage that specifically, like just having the capital, or at least most of the capital up front to be able to match it, right? To donate would be the ideal thing, right? Like, let's say you're planning to donate $100,000, right? And let's say you have $100,000 in your account and you want to run a charity event, and it's like, well, we want to donate what we can, and let's say you make $90,000 and you're like, well, I guess we'll bump it up to 100,000, right? Because then you had the money to cover it to begin with. You made a little bit of extra donation, right? That feels very corporate and that feels very clean, safe even. But I think that it would address and prevent liability and complications from stuff like this, where you're having to deal with subs, you're having to deal with bits, and you're having to deal with just random donations and stuff, right? Not saying random donations are bad, right? But like, it's a lot to manage, and ideally, yes, there is someone who should be managing that. Absolutely, like that's their job. You are managing this, and you are matching. You're matching and compiling what all this is, and you're doing it in a way that is evidence. Here's your receipt. This is what happened, right? At least that's how I personally would do it. I don't know how other people do it. But like, I think these are really good points to bring up, even if how you would do it does differ. I think it does really come down to, though, like, will this get donated or not? And it sounds like if everything that was donated did get donated, even with a little bit extra, I really don't. As long as it got donated, that's really all that matters, right? As long as it's like, well, you got between subs and bits, you got $15,000, but you only donated $14,000. Like, there's a clear discrepancy. That's a problem. But if between bits, donations, subs, right, you get $15,000, and say 15,000 plus whatever, maybe you donate an extra 2,000, right? Like it is met and even especially exceeded. I think that's fair, because at least the money is accounted for, right? 15,000 equals 50,000 plus additional contribution, exceeding 15,000. Unless I'm off base here.
And sometimes that happened a few days after Indieland had wrapped up. We worked hard to figure this process out, as early on we didn't have everything locked in.
Right.
By the time we were done, that was our process. No matter what, though, dollar for dollar, everything did go to charity. For full transparency, on screen right now, you can see our revenue for Twitch bits and subs for every year of Indieland, and the document containing this data will be available for you down below. $459,129.90 was contributed to the open hand by the fundraising efforts of That One Video Gamer, The Completionist, and Indieland. All of the money raised for Indieland went directly towards that sum, and absolutely none of it was used for either expenses or personal use. This can be corroborated by both our Twitch earnings and our unclaimed expenses year on year. The process of receiving and tracking Twitch bits and subs was a tedious extra layer to Indieland's operations, which is why we encourage viewers eventually over the years to donate directly to the Tiltified campaign instead. That way, donor money was going directly to the open hand, and I don't need to be the middleman at all in this situation. While we're talking expenses, let's address the claim that I used Indieland as a way to earn money from claimed expenses and gain clout from running a prestigious event with big-name celebrities and respected creators.
Of everyone in the entire world who benefits from Indieland, it's Gerard who benefits the most. He gets the Twitch followers, he gets the media attention, he gets to mingle with game developers and celebrities, he gets all the credit.
As it grew, Indieland became increasingly more expensive to produce. Most of all in 2022, we made it an attendable live show like we had promised our viewers in 2019. That One Video Gamer shouldered all expenses. That was my contribution to the cause. The general rule of thumb is that a nonprofit charity should only spend around 25% of its income on expenses. And according to the BBB Wise Giving Alliance, 35% is the max amount to be considered a credible charity. The Open Hands operating costs, on average, were only 11.85% during the years that Indieland was being run.
So here's the thing, though. Why doesn't why doesn't he bring this up in his video? Oh, well, he didn't know, But, like, if you're going to say something, like, it feels like he should have numbers, right? Am I wrong? Is this not how journalism works? Have I been spoiled because of people like CoffeeZilla who generally come with numbers? Like, I didn't watch the original video. Looking at this, like, if this is this should be public information, right? So I'm assuming in good faith, I'm assuming it was mentioned at least. I'm assuming that he would have had to mention this document and all the numbers and compile this and still come to this conclusion, right? At least that's how I understand how this works, or how like journalism would work.
We achieved this because Indieland had no claimed expenses to maximize donor contributions, and more importantly, it was a passion project for our team. This was our idea. This was our vision. This was our dream. In the now leaked Discord interview conducted by Carl and Mutahar, I had previously mentioned that some expenses were recouped by my company via Twitch revenue or reimbursements from the foundation. It actually turns out that I was wrong. No expenses were ever claimed by my company, either through OpenHand or through the Twitch revenue. Between travel expenses for guests, venue costs for 2022, food and drinks, and all sorts of other extras, That One Video Gamer spent approximately $88,000 running IndieLand across all 6 years. This also doesn't include the tax burden that One Video Gamer took on by processing Twitch bits and subscriptions, plus the man hours dedicated to preparing for and running these events. That's hundreds of hours from 5 full-time employees being paid to put this event on together year after year. In short,
I mean, what would be looking at a comparable operating cost? Like if you had another organization by another big streamer, right? How does this compare to their operating costs? Because I'm trying to cut through and I'm trying to see, is this efficient? Is everything above board? Like I'm trying to cut through that.
We spent tens of thousands of dollars of my company's own money to run a charity that we did not get paid for. Not for clout, but because we cared. Many employees volunteered additional time to make IndieLand happen, and I did not make this mandatory for their duties. We were all building this thing together. This event belonged to the staff who put it together, and they did it because they wanted to. They cared immensely about both indie games and victims of dementia. I am insanely proud of my team, and we only succeeded as much as we did because of their unbelievable dedication. I was the face, yes, and I did have final say, but this was our baby, not just mine. I am so proud of the showrunners, producers, editors, and coordinators who actually achieved these goals that they set for themselves. As a final note, I want to add that many online have noticed that the Open Hand Foundation has entered into a delinquency status with the IRS. Carl J.
Okay. So let me rewind that.
Foundation has entered into a delinquency status. Many online have noticed that the Open Hand Foundation has entered into a delinquency status with the IRS.
Okay. So once again, public information. So going back to the thing really quick, so I don't have to go back to it later. In regards to charity funds versus own money, I'm assuming we would have to substantiate this some paperwork somewhere that would showcase that it is private funds of $88,000 over the course of the years in operation versus of personal funds rather than actual charity funds. And I don't know if we have the documentation. I'm not the lawyer. I'm not the correct person to really tackle that, if I'm being honest. Something that I would have to see beyond a reasonable doubt, some form of documentation, or have it corroborated that the form of documentation provided to an expert is in fact 100%, this is all above board. Because from this, I honestly can't really come to a conclusion. I see numbers on a screen. I see some different spreadsheets, as well as Gerard saying that it is the personal funds at that point. I would have to have somebody corroborate this who is more of a specialist than I am personally. I'll take it at face value, but I'm open to obviously conflicting information that says that, actually because of this, there were charity funds that were used for this and it was not personal, or corroborating that it was all personal and not, and charity funds weren't used. Open Hand Foundation has now been classified as delinquent by the Office of the Attorney General. They are delinquent because they have failed to file the required tax form. means they may not legally engage in any conduct that requires registration with DOJ, soliciting charitable funds, despite the fact they are still soliciting donations through their upcoming golf tournament later this year. I mean, definitely not a good look. I want to see how this is broken down.
Carl Jobst has run with this, saying that this is further proof that Open Hand did not comply with the law. In reality,
How do you come to that conclusion?
Open Hand's legal counsel was instructed by the Department of Justice to withhold their tax filings until the investigation was concluded.
Is there anything to support this? Is there any sort of DOJ documentation to support this? Because sure, I'm down, but especially when it comes to taxes and the IRS, that's a hard one to swallow.
This delinquency status is the charity equivalent of an unpaid parking ticket and gets cleared whenever Open Hand files a specific form, which they've already taken care of.
Charities, annual registration renewal. Every charitable corporation, unincorporated association, and trustee doing business or holding property in California is required to annually renew its registration with the Attorney General's Registry of Charitable Trusts. Registrants must report annually by filling Form RRF-1 with the applicable renewal fee, along with either IRS Form 990, -EZPF, or Form CTTR1. The failure to renew the registration will lead to the charitable organization being listed as delinquent. The Attorney General's Registry of Charitable Trust may lead to a loss of tax exempt status. See, here's the thing, though, is that I would assume someone like Carl Jobst with the seeming expertise, would he necessarily say that this is the thing? No. But would he not also disclose that this is a thing that charities can go through? Like, it would seem disingenuous to just omit information like this as a possibility, right? I refuse to believe somebody who is at 1 million subscribers and seems to have knowledge of an industry like this, right? Because of how they've talked to him, how him and Mudahar have talked, that they don't have objective numbers, that they close off avenues like this if these are in fact avenues, right? So I guess I'm a little baffled, right? I'm giving Carl Jobst, because I don't know who this person is. I haven't watched their video, if I'm being honest. I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they did bring this specific interaction up as a possibility, right? But, obviously they'll come to their own conclusion regardless. But at the very least, they did clarify that this could be a possibility, right? I'm assuming that would be good faith journalism.
As a result, this delinquency status has been corrected and is actually explicit proof that my family and I fully complied with the investigation and truly have nothing to hide. Now, I wish I could end the video right here and move on and not acknowledge my detractors beyond easily debunked numbers and misunderstood compliance laws. Unfortunately, Carl and Mudahar have made themselves impossible to ignore. They have inserted themselves into my story, whether I like it or not. Both of them have perpetuated and publicized numerous conspiracy theories about myself and my family online, and this has led to irreparable harm to not just myself, but everyone associated with my family, including personal information being leaked, stalking, public harassment, and so much more. It doesn't matter that these guys never explicitly said they believe some of this stuff, nor do they verbally condone bad faith attacks. They discussed and entertained several conspiracies that directly hurt people who had nothing to do with any of this at all. One of the conspiracy claims was that
because if I remember correctly, Mudahar was on the Unsubscribed podcast, right? So, I mean, he also had legs there talking about this as well, right? Brandon Herrera. I think Angry Cops might have been there. I don't know. I didn't watch that episode specifically.
Family donated personal funds to cover up the fact that we secretly stole all of the donor money. Both Mudahar and Carl discussed this as not only a legitimate possibility, but as a likely reality, despite the fact that no hard evidence of embezzlement has ever existed.
On what grounds, though?
One of the actual conspiracies for this is, one user writes, they just needed a few weeks to secure a loan or liquidate assets to come up with the money to do this. If this conspiracy theory is true and the California DOJ or the IRS are investigating, that's going to draw some serious eyeballs over to them. So if that money is there, just prove it exists. I get it. You're behind lawyers and PR agencies.
If this was actually true, the DOJ would have caught it instantly and acted accordingly. 501c3 charities in California are extremely strict and are under much tighter supervision than most other states in the U.S. And even...
I mean, I'm assuming Mudahar knows this, though, right? Because he's doing research for this, right? I'm assuming that Mudahar, in saying or trying to talk about this, he would be aware of this, right? Mudahar would not be unaware of this interaction.
more outrageous conspiracy tries to allege that my dad poisoned my mom in order to not just worsen her condition, but maybe even cause her diagnosis in the first place.
I mean, this is something that belongs on 4chan. Like, just, dude, people need to go touch grass.
These were particularly nasty conspiracies that I wanted to address in my initial response video from December of 2023, where I shared my mom's autopsy report to prove that yes, she did live and die with frontotemporal dementia. Some people were a little confused about this and were extremely upset that I used my mom's death certificate in that way that I did. But seeing all these accusations that were swirling around me, even the truth of my mom's disorder was now officially being questioned. Now there's one, the truth.
Mods keep scrubbing this as a conspiracy theory, but I always believe that his mom's symptoms were played up to make her dependent on him. What? Okay, like what grounds do you have to say this though? Right? You want to talk about skill and merit? Right? Unsubscribe podcast status. What skill and merit do you have to make this? Right? Mutahar, Carl Jobst, these things that I brought up, right? In good faith, California 501c3, whatever it's called, right? Right? Mutahar has the skill and merit because he is expected to have put the research into it to come to his conclusion. That's how that works, right? Carl Jobst being able to say, say things like I've said before, right? It's like, that's the skill and merit because it's expected that they do the research, and even with their conclusion, they've considered things like, they've considered things like the tax filings and stuff, right? They've already considered these options. That is the expectation.
My mom's disorder was now officially being questioned. Now, there's one more thing that I want to get ahead of here.
Sure.
Just a couple of years before my mom passed away, my dad started dating his now current wife while still being married to my mom. When you're committed to caring for someone with dementia for over a decade, life gets extremely complicated.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like Silent Hill 2 would playing the remake recently. I feel that might be. I don't even want to invite that parallel. I really don't, because at most the parallel comes down to James being going through it, but also like Mary going through it. But then that it really takes a dark turn, and that's where the events of Silent Hill start taking place, right? So as much as I wanted to draw a connection there, I don't think that's genuine. I don't think that that's fair, and I don't think that they're equatable. Like, I understand what's being presented here. I don't know. I'm gonna shut my mouth on that one. Redacting the Silent Hill portion.
My mom was at least 10 years into getting sick, and she was barely communicative at this point. My dad somehow found love at his senior age with an amazing woman who would go on to help our family take care of my mom well into her final days. I should not have to explain what I feel is no one's business but my family's.
I mean, it is. Like, he's correct. It's no one's business. Would I necessarily do that? Probably not. Would people I know probably do that? Probably not. It's also none of my business. Like, and yeah, these should be just left as Reddit and 4chan comments and definitely not be signal boosted, right? I think that's incredibly fair.
Unfortunately, there's Discord receipts of Carl stating that this was the last bit of family stuff that he was holding back, presumably until...
This is the dad with his golf tournament. Why does this matter, bro? Like, what is the intent behind quote-unquote holding this bit of information? Is this to try to debunk a diagnosis, right? Like what is the intent here?
I decided to respond again, repeatedly referring to my stepmom as a mistress in my dad's supposed affair. Considering he used this exact tactic against Billy Mitchell, accusing his current wife of being nothing but a mistress in Billy's alleged affair, I have no doubt in my mind that Carl would and might still try and use this against me in the future.
Dude, why sit on this information, bro? Like, if you, and that's the thing, right? If this Carl person has this much information and it's actually considering all of the options, right? Like, he's looking at disposition right now. Clearly, he has the skill and merit, right? I think that we can come to the realization that he is attempting to speak in good faith on things that he knows what he's talking about, right? why sit on some information like this for an extended period of time, right? What's the intent behind that? Are you just withholding information just cuz? Like, I think referring to as mistress as well, right? I think that's a subjective conclusion, right? I think, sure, a court of public opinion might align with that, but it's like, how did you come to this conclusion? Is this exactly what this is by definition, by sources that you have? Like, how did you come to this conclusion, right? And I think, sure, maybe there's a commentary in regards to elderly care and care of somebody who... I'm trying to find the way to word this. Care of somebody who is on the decline and finding love within that, but like still kind of being with them. That's well outside of my wheelhouse. And honestly, personally, I discourage that discussion because it's none of my business, quite frankly, right? Is it all consensual? Are they all adults? Now, if it's not consensual, that becomes an issue, right? Obviously. But like, bro, it's a whole lot of like, where are we coming from with this, right? Bro, charity didn't send the money when it was supposed to. Has the charity rectified this? Yes, no. The charity has rectified this? Cool. The event still happened. Don't do it again. Much like people say, Brandon Herrera, you pointed your pistol at your hand because your flashlight was cool. Don't do it again. And if he does it again, people are going to have an issue, right? That's how that works. That's literally how this works, right? Don't do it again. DOJ, if they found no fault, once again, because speculation on a final meeting that apparently just hasn't happened yet because, I don't know, reasons, is one of those things where it's like, I don't know, I'm getting into the weeds here. But ideally, the question that comes to my mind, as always, is why? Why would you hold on to this information with all of these resources, information, and research that you've done?
Very next week, he applied to marry his mistress of many years. So that's why Billy lies about his marriage, because the truth is that he had his children out of wedlock to a mistress, and that just doesn't sound quite as wholesome.
Myself and my family have long accepted and love who my dad married after my mom passed away. It doesn't matter how much Carl tries to twist the truth.
Came back as medical problems. It's dementia. I'm reading this under my breath purposely. Facade, bro. What? I don't think I ever want to watch this Carl person. I really haven't experienced them. And maybe this is just like Discord DM status, but like I feel like we're losing the plot here.
There is no grand conspiracy here. The truth is that despite what they claim, Mutahar and Carl are not journalists, accountants, lawyers, or even engineers.
So are they? So and that's the thing is, do they lack the skill and merit to talk about what they talk about? Yes, obviously, the elephant in the room. Yes, you don't have to be a specialist. You don't have to have a degree, what you're talking about, right? You're allowed to have an opinion. Except the difference here is if you don't have the skill and merit and you're speaking from a position of authority and that conclusion is wrong, you are subject to scrutiny and criticism.
They're YouTubers, just like me. That's why they never issued any corrections to this story, despite numerous allegations being thoroughly disproven even before my own response video came out. Corrections and questions are entertained as possible, but at no point did either of these two admit that they were wrong about anything they incorrectly cited. The 5% rule for charities to donate every single year, open hands filing status, expenses and contribution totals, or even my own words. These were all things that I tried to address in my response video, and others online had corrected them as well. There were a number of laws, requirements, and so much more that both Carl and Mutahar cited incorrectly, with no corrections to this very day.
And I honestly have an issue with this. I do have issues. What was it? There was a whole thing with Nux Taku and somebody and saying one thing, but it wasn't true. And then he got other people, and the other people agreed with Nux Taku, but it was incorrect. Like, there has to be some kind of duty of information, right? Like, if I get things wrong on stream every day. Usually it's something along the lines of release dates, pretty minuscule stuff, right? In comparison, or somebody will say, this actually like something in like Metal Gear Solid, right? Actually, this is how biologically this is supposed to operate, with like the fear or something like that. I don't know, right? But like, like it's stuff that I feel is pretty like low tier, right? I am still technically wrong, and I do love people who clarify. It's one of the reasons that I love doing what I do, is because I get to see people who help design, some of my favorite games, and I get to meet people who are, really big in, I guess, the modding scene in a couple games, right? And I'm obfuscating things on purpose, right? Or I just get to meet some really cool people, and especially because of what I cover. Like, I mean, yeah, it makes sense that if, some people probably wouldn't want to associate with me because I cover a lot of really heavy stuff. Don't get me wrong, right? But like, if I get something wrong, like, the expectation is that I learn from that. I take accountability and responsibility, especially if it's something dangerous, right? Like, if I happen to say, oh, well, making or pointing or not having your finger on the trigger is not a basic rule of firearm safety. That's a pretty big mess up. Like, literally everywhere will tell you that's part of the 4 basic rules, right? Just using that as an example offhand. And it is dangerous to show or champion that logic in any way, shape, or form, right? Yes, there is a there is a special exception for like satire or showcasing what not to do in a controlled environment, right? Like, yes, there is special exception, but a random purple dragon VTuber dude on the internet, right, saying that, oh, well, you can just have your finger on the trigger whenever you want. That's dangerous to champion and should be called out, right? It's why I hold myself to such high standards. It's why when I get into something, I try to make sure I try to understand it at the upper echelons. These 4 basic rules are non-negotiable. Grats. These are non-negotiable. And then obviously then you get into the nuance, the asterisk of like, well, what if you're in combat? What if you're in a situation where you're in danger? We're not in that situation. In that situation, there's different rules. Different rules apply, right? Reasonably across the board. We're having a straw man argument at that point. Like, especially if something is incorrectly cited, I do feel that there is a duty of care to make sure at the very least you address it.
Let's take a step back real quick. Mudahar's first video released on November 13th. His next upload responding to online criticisms was on November 20th. His third video was on December the 2nd. And a fourth video was then released on December 7th, this time to talk about our donation to AFTD. Each and every video, Mudahar told his viewers that the open hand needed to be reported for an audit if you, the viewer, wanted anything to change.
And that's the thing. What, like, the literally call to action to report to governmental agency. This is a literal call to action.
Looking at their golf tournament, looking at a bunch of other places, there is, at least in my opinion, income or revenue that should be reassessed by an auditing body.
In your opinion, how do you come to this conclusion, right? And that's the thing, right? He clearly should have the skill or merit to answer that question and not use napkin math, right? How did you come to this conclusion? How much are you, where is the source of this? How much are you expecting, right? I mean, like, well, you can't disprove it. Okay, but if we're getting into disproving territory, we've already lost the plot. This is a degenerate argument at that point.
That is until December 9th when I released my response video. In my video, I said that we welcomed an audit, responding to the claim that we were somehow afraid that an investigation might happen, exposing the books and everything up to everyone.
What they don't want is people, especially the authorities, looking into the golf tournament and all of that sponsorship money.
But if you have the money, I don't think it's illogical to show that you have the money and you are willing to donate it. Unless, of course, even if possessing the money after all of this, there are still some serious legal repercussions.
Instead of admitting that, hey, maybe he might have gone too far, Mudahar doubled down, saying that a criminal investigation by the government suddenly doesn't disprove his accusations.
If verbatim he genuinely said this doesn't disprove it, bro, we are... Chat, I'm a purple space alien. Can you prove it? Well, you can't disprove I'm a purple space alien. You see how that opens up to bad faith arguments? Well, you can't disprove it, right? Bro, we can't. That's not how adults operate. That's you can't operate under that.
That we broke the law.
Now, the audit was never the smoking gun during this video, and you might be like, whoa, what are you talking about, Muda?
This is the exact investigation that Mudahar instructed his viewers would deliver justice if they followed his instructions.
Given the lack of comment over the completionist charity situation is surprising since for this, you definitely need time and lawyers. I'm a bit saddened why we haven't seen a statement confirming the money is still there in these charities' holdings. For transparency's sake, I'll also be sending my research and complaints to Attorney General in the state of California. If this is a charity fraud, only they can confirm, and they have no... Isn't Mudahar international as well? Like, isn't he Canadian? I don't know how that interacts with U.S. Department of Justice and stuff. I'm assuming it's all treated like, above board, right? I don't think there's necessarily a discrepancy there. I don't think that there's necessarily... They treat it with less seriousness, right? So one, the showcases digital footprint, right? The showcases digital footprint. Also, last I understood it, if you're submitting actual complaints like this, you are filing that information, under penalty of perjury, to the best of your knowledge that this is correct. So what if he filed information and his conclusion, they were just incorrect, right? Shouldn't he be held legally responsible? Whatever he filed, I'm assuming, once again, is above board. The expectation, he's done his research. Everything that has been cited, like these numbers and charts and graphs and potential, 501c3 interactions, right, have all been accounted for and have been filed, right? That is the bare minimum expectation. But if he filed this and it was incorrect or in bad faith, isn't there actual recourse for that? I don't know. I can't say. I don't know what was filed. I don't know what he submitted. And even then, there is the part of, to the best of your knowledge, this was done in good faith. But if it wasn't done in good faith and information was willingly omitted, that's where problems could arise.
Do you want justice to be delivered? So I'm going to teach you guys how to report this properly. Now, obviously, if you want any agency to look into this, check the state of California.
As for Carl, he actually acknowledges that he doesn't correctly cite any of the laws that I supposedly broke.
I couldn't give two shits if any of that is illegal or illegal.
What?
It would not affect my own moral judgments because I don't base my morals on whether or not a court convicts someone of a crime.
Okay, so you're arguing court of public opinion. That's fine. But, you do have to care about the legality here. Yes, morally, you think that holding on to charity funds is pretty bad. Me, I think holding on to charity funds is pretty bad, right? Especially, and then obviously he went over sitting on it for about a year, family, corporate contracts, etc., right? Yeah, I don't agree with it. I personally don't agree with it, right? Is everything above board? Has everything been filed? Has everything been resolved? Cool. Don't do it again, right? You've resolved the issue. Now don't do it again, right? You don't care if it's legal or not. That you're literally reporting on the legality of it, though. Are you not? I think I missed something here.
However, instead of admitting that he got anything wrong in his videos, Carl conveniently says that he is not a journalist.
I've literally never called myself an investigative journalist. I may make videos to entertain people and to make money. Criminal gets exposed while doing it. That's just a bonus. Except you are engaging in the act of this, right? Are you not? You're trying to investigate, right? In a broad sense, you're investigating information and compiling it and reporting on your findings, right? Well, I don't know. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, whether you give yourself a different label or not.
He's just making entertainment.
The purpose of a YouTube video is first and foremost to entertain, because if a video isn't easy to understand or entertaining, people won't watch it and I will get less money.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably where I go wrong. I try to be informative and have discussions back and forth. It's why my metrics are so low. It's why he's at almost 1 million and I'm at 50,000. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate every single person who comes out and says hi, comes out to my streams and stuff, right? I'm a pretty small dude, right? I appreciate where I'm at, and I know there's still people who would envy to be where I'm at, and I'm cognizant of that, right? It's frustrating some days, don't get me wrong, especially when I feel I should be further than I am, but I also make 45-minute videos into almost 2-hour videos, right? We're at 1:33 right now, right? It's a hard watch. I think that while he's generally correct, it's with an asterisk of you can have videos that are just informative, right? Charlie, Moist Critical, right? What video did he do recently that I watched? Because I like watching this man's opinion on things, right? He covered a couple weeks ago, as of recording this, he covered the CEO catching the hat out of the air that was thrown to the kid, right? And it's like, sure, you could argue that's entertainment, but it's also, yo, this happened, right? And I guess him providing his own commentary is entertainment. I think as a broad philosophy, I think he has the correct of it, but like, there's more to it than that, especially if information being cited is just not correct, right? And if anything, if you're willing to compromise your own morals and ethics to get the most information correct and compromise yourself, your own brand and image to push a narrative, which especially if it has holes in it, or your narrative contradicts literal facts and logic, is that not a problem? Like, come to your own educated conclusion. I'm not here to sway you one way or the other. These are things that I look at.
Accusations of criminal wrongdoing and inexcusable moral character are now a form of entertainment and should not be taken as fact, despite the fact that Carl cites himself constantly as an investigative journalist, both in his GoFundMe campaigns, on the record, in the courtroom, in several...
I'm freshly YouTube investigative journalist. Digital footprint. It literally works.
different cases, and even in one of his most recent videos.
My channel and my investigative work improved dramatically after I got sued.
Like, you can't have it both ways. This is like saying that you have ADHD because you forget your car keys, and TikTok, you self-diagnosed via TikTok, and well, I get overstimulated easily, so I can't do this. And then like completely use it as a shield, and then conveniently, when someone's like, hey, we don't want to overstimulate, it's like, yo, I want to come along, right? Like I don't know. That's a different commentary, and how I firmly dislike the notion of self-diagnosis as someone with an actual medical diagnosis. Like I cannot stand the self-diagnosis trend. It irritates me. But it feels like it's being used as a shield, right? Are you or are you not an investigative journalist? Pick one. Yes, no. Are you not? Then why is this being listed? Okay, you are? Cool. Then you should be held to those expectations. You can't have it both ways, right? You're just Schrodinger's investigator.
Despite the best efforts that I put in my initial response video, I was never going to win, no matter what I said.
Yeah.
The money got donated, but that was never the true goal. For Carl and Mudahar to succeed, I had to be irredeemable, and nothing I could have legally provided at the time would have been enough.
Which I will once again prove in this video that you cannot take Gerard at his word. He is proven to be somebody that is deceptive.
It was my 16-minute video under the scrutiny of countless legal professionals versus their 8+ hours of sponsored conspiracy-based attacks. So, as a recap,
I think it's interesting that he was sponsored. They were sponsored by people for this as well. Just interesting. I got to look into who the sponsors are.
Yes, I did lie about where the donations were going, knowingly so after IndieLand 2022. I try to take responsibility privately by making sure that the money got donated appropriately, hoping that I could minimize the damage this might do to everyone in my life, keeping this a secret to prevent anyone else from being complicit. In reality, continuing to hide this throughout 2023 only made everything worse, because now I was still directly complicit. There was always going to be hell to pay, and I was just being stupid about all of this. I should have just partnered with the organization directly, made things right from the beginning, and not cared about restricted donations or where the money was going.
Yeah. Like, you could argue that, like, yeah, it compromises your own moral fiber, right? It compromises your own morals and ethics and wanting to make sure the money is used for the best situation, right? But it's like, yo, we donated the money. If the organization we donated to spent it all on like actual fees and stuff, yeah, people are going to get upset, but it's like, suddenly that's not on you as the Open Hand Foundation. Suddenly that's on the organization that misappropriated the funds, right? Right? Like, yeah, absolutely. From the beginning, lawyers, from the beginning, making sure you're talking with the Open Heart Foundation. From the beginning, you found out, you caught a whiff of those funds not going places. You seek out to rectify that real quick. And then you give your response to going, hey, I ended up making sure I found this out. This is what I did about this. I made sure to contact all relevant professionals, and this is the statement I have to give, right? And I think a lot of this would have gone over a lot better. Yeah, I don't like that. None of us like that funds were withheld, right? Like pretty bad image, pretty bad look, right? But like, yes, this could have gone better, absolutely. But it does come into a situation where, especially with, I don't even know, like, not journalists citing laws and not taking into account certain 501c3 laws, like, it feels like while Gerard was, yes, at fault, it feels like there's also fault to be had amongst Mutahar and Carl, right? So at that point, like, everyone's kind of just degenerative spiraled.
I also should not have gone ahead with Indieland in 2023. The show had taken a life of its own because it finally was receiving the notoriety for all of our team's hard work, and I did not want to hurt or betray everyone that put their blood, sweat, and tears into the show.
Right.
This was just as important to indie games as it was to charity, and that added a ton of expectations and pressure.
So I will say this, though, because this actually colors my bias a little bit. If I have an issue with someone, or I will talk to it with them. If someone has an issue with me, I expect that they'll just tell me straight up, right? Hey, this is my issue with you. This is the issue that we're having. And what actually led to my crash out recently, as I'll put it, was a situation in which communication just wasn't there. The expected communication fell through. And it's like, I have tried for years to reinforce communication. I have, I'm building continuously an entire channel on talking about things, right? And making that expectation clear of, yo, if I have a problem, I'll talk about it. If you have a problem, you should talk about it. Let's actually resolve this like adults. And when stuff isn't resolved like adults and information and comments are hidden, it's like, so that colors my bias, right? That covers my bias, and I'm an individual who wants to talk and communicate. So when we talk about, and it is hard for something. Like if I'm having a good upload, right? And I've had this happen, right? Where Pokemon recently had the, issued a statement, yeah, we're aware of, unauthorized use by whatever department it was for this Pokemon thing. And it's like, but is it unauthorized? Because your track record, Nintendo and Pokemon, showcases that you'll sue anyone for unauthorized use of your IP, right? So now suddenly that doesn't make sense, right? And it's like, yeah, you're caught between a rock and a hard place, right? You're finally getting the attention on Indieland, and if you had to stop it for that, you flatline, you kill all momentum, right? That becomes a problem. And then, it being able to be successful is suspect. Obviously, the moral and ethical thing probably, yeah, like he's saying, would have been to cancel it, would have been to stop it, right? Stop from having in the first place. But, like, people being unable to talk about things is continuously a problem. And so in his situation, yeah, I am more biased towards, I'm sorry, the funds are here and they haven't gone anywhere. We're going to talk about this and resolve this within this meeting here, right? But not everyone's like that, and I get that. And let's be honest, like, there needs to be less people like me, because I will take paragraphs to explain things, and that shouldn't have to be the expectation of anybody. But even me as well. But then I always run into issues when I try to sugarcoat things, and then people draw their own conclusions, put words in my mouth. It's been a thing for a while now, so it's a neat balancing act. I don't know. Just wanted to take a minute to outline, once again, reasons why I do things. And when I don't have the ability to communicate and talk through things, and decisions are just kind of made, or intentions are hidden or obfuscated, that becomes a problem. And I want to resolve it, but people generally don't want to resolve things, and, kind of let just processes take their time. And when it happens, right? I'm very opposed to that philosophy. I have a trouble adapting to that.
In the end, I made a choice that cost my team their employment and ruined their lives. Not to mention all the residual flack of every indie developer that they received just because of their association to me. It was short-sighted and dishonest. I should have come clean as soon as I learned about it and separated myself and the event from my family immediately.
Yeah.
With all that being said, though, what I did not do was steal, embezzle, or otherwise misappropriate donor funds for anything. Every cent of money donated was always there, waiting to find a benefactor. Any claims of theft, embezzlement, or fraud are categorically false. I also want to apologize to Carl and Mutahar. Despite my criticisms, I know what it's like to have your entire life scrutinized by tens of thousands of strangers.
I mean, I'm going to still scrutinize both of them. I mean, to be fair, I remember when Someone Nerd Gamers was actually about creepypastas and stuff. Then it turned into like alpha male red pill like videos, like dissecting it and you know, citing legality in regards to this. Carl, that's the thing I've talked about. I'm not going to rehash it again. Like these things that they reasonably, as an investigative journalist, you would know certain interactions in regards to that, right? So that shouldn't even be a talking point. This should all have been accounted for, right? So, I mean, I guess it's easy for me from a third party perspective, but it's like I feel like everybody in this situation did wrong. Like everybody in this situation has some dirt.
Who just want to see you fail, and nobody deserves that. I know you both wanted this money donated, and you didn't deserve to get blown off just because people liked me. But I'm not interested in fighting some eternal YouTube drama conflict.
Yeah.
I just want to come clean, and this is genuinely the soonest I was able to do so. So if you're really interested in understanding whether Carl and Mutahar conducted a responsible and educated investigation, there's a great YouTube video out there by a YouTube channel called Accounting in YouTube that breaks down the entire thing. And it's made by actual CPAs who looked at everything that Carl and Mutahar looked at.
I love that, dude. That's the skill and merit, right? That's what I want to see. That's great. Hour and 32 minutes. Wow. Oh, I know what I'm adding to my watch later list. That's great, though. And on understanding that they both made errors, yeah, that'll reinforce my points into what skill and merit do both Carl Jobs and Mutahar have?
If this is where my work and charity ends, then so be it. I have participated in dozens of public fundraising events over the years that have nothing to do with the Open Hand Foundation or my family for that matter. And the reason has always been the same each and every single time. Real people need as much help as they can get when faced with life-changing disorders like dementia. Yeah. I've experienced this whole thing firsthand from the age of 10. It is one of the hardest things I've ever had to endure, and I never wanted to defraud anyone in all of this. I just wanted to raise money for charity and help promote indie games. I wanted to elevate the industry as much as I could because it's always elevated me. So, where do we go from here? Even if I somehow recover from this controversy, things can never be the same as they once were.
No.
Does that mean the Completionist, the show, my channel, my livelihood? Is it all just dead? No.
I think this is what, and people have pointed this out with me, where people point out, Kip, you seem oddly concerned with being canceled. I mean, yeah, I kind of like what I do. And I try very hard to come to educated conclusions and stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, even if someone makes a weird, like a hit piece on me, like as long as I'm not doing like anything hyper illegal, it really doesn't matter. Like if anything, it's like you do something, you like embezzle funds, commit fraud, watch something you shouldn't have. No. I mean, people are just going to come to their own conclusions and just hate you anyways. So, I mean, just, you know, focus on what you're doing and what you're doing correctly, what works best for you. And ideally, the rest will follow, right?
Hell no. I still complete games. I actually never stopped completing games. Even through the entirety of last year, I completed well over a dozen games just because I wanted to. At the end of the day, I still love making videos. I'm not a drama YouTuber or anything like that.
Yeah.
I play games and just want to make videos about the things that I'm passionate about. My life is fundamentally different these days. My friend group has completely shifted. My family dynamics are very, very different. And the image that you all had of me is shattered. And maybe that's all okay. Maybe it's not okay. Maybe it doesn't need to be okay. But this is a new beginning for me, the Completionist, and hopefully all of you at home who've supported me, should you choose to continue to roll with me. From now on, this is my story to tell. And if you're here for it, I cannot wait to make entirely new kinds of videos that will make you laugh and hopefully make you think. Going forward, you're going to be seeing a lot of me more streaming on Twitch, and hopefully weekly videos will return again soon. But it's going to feel very different. I don't have my company or my team anymore.
Right.
It's just me once again, by myself. Before
I mean, I watched him, I think, sub 20 episodes. I watched when, was it Greg? I watched when he was on the Completionist. I watched old Completionist. And then obviously there was the split. I don't know what it was. I don't think the information was ever made public. And honestly, that's the thing, is it's not my business. They went their separate ways. That's the end of the story. That's it. Do you choose to support him? Do you choose to not support him? That's up to you and your own educated conclusion.
in this video, I want to talk to a few people specifically. To Alex Fossiani and Kelly Whistler. You two have been in my corner for years, supporting me through the insanity that's been TOVG. I am honored and humbled to know the both of you, and I am so deeply sorry for all the pain that I've caused the two of you, even to this day. To my family, but more specifically to my brother Jacques. No matter what happens in life, we will always be family. We will always be brothers. We will, whether we like it or not, be there for each other through thick and thin. I know this has been hard on both of us and our relationship, and this whole video won't fix that, but hopefully it's a step in the right direction, and I hope that things go back to the way they once were someday. This is a new me, a new adventure, a new chapter. I learned a lot of hard lessons these last few years. This new road ahead of me will undoubtedly be filled with new highs, new lows, different pains, different sorrows, new battles, and hopefully not new or more enemies, but more importantly, more mistakes. I am only human, and I want to try and do right by each and every one of you who has ever supported me. I hope I can earn your trust and make you all proud of me once more. So with that said, till next time, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again soon for another brand new episode of The Completionist.
I mean, I appreciate the sentiment. I think that intentions are good here. Personally, I want to see what the DOJ, the final meeting, whenever that happens, I want to see what the result of that is. Was there criminal wrongdoing found, yes or no? If no criminal wrongdoing found, yes, I will still have my bias. Yes, I will still, morally and ethically think one way or the other, right? Yeah. I don't think holding on to funds, especially if it's known, you push for that to actually get resolved, right? From a liability standpoint, from an asset standpoint, from a risk management standpoint, right? I mean, that's incredibly fair. I'll have my own personal bias, right? As I have my own personal bias against someone like the Act Man for supporting Payday 3 and saying, yeah, this game is great, and then it coming out, and it's like just such a departure from Act Man calling out bad games. From Brandon Herrera, touting the 4 rules of gun safety and just pointing his pistol at his hand, right? We're all human. We're all human. Mistakes happen. It depends on the gravity of the mistake. There are certain mistakes you can't come back from. Like if you watch kitty content, you're pretty irredeemable at that point. Just off to the wood chipper. Right, pretty reasonable across the board. But like, people make mistakes, and yes, they should be held accountable and responsible for their mistakes. And especially if they make it right, especially if they do everything they need to. And yeah, like, people will feel a certain way. People will have their biases and preconceived notions, right? Like, yeah, as long as it doesn't happen again, I see no reason why they shouldn't continue to grow. Something like Brandon Herrera, don't point a pistol at your hand again. Okay? It happens again. Yeah. No, don't let it happen again. Someone like the Act Man. Cool. If he's back on track and he's critical of games that he feels aren't complete or bad, right? Then yeah, honestly, like, he should be able to continue that way. Someone like the Completionist, right? If reasonably every avenue has been exhausted and all funds are accounted for and donated, should he be banned off the internet? Especially when it seems like there was some allegedly dodgy reporting, which I don't understand how it would be dodgy. And I will be watching that 90-minute video, the accounting video, because that actually fascinates me. Probably won't react to it, because that would easily be a 3+ hour reaction, right? But like, I want to see what the DOJ has to say. I want to see, if fault was found or not. And ultimately, just don't let it happen again. And I think that's something we can all learn from, as this is a very human story. So come to your own educated conclusion one way or the other. I know this is really going to be a hotly debated video anyways. I can already see the Mutahar video. I can already see the Carl Jobs video. I was under the impression with one of Mutahar's prior videos, he sounded like he was going to litigate against Mutahar. It doesn't seem like that's the case now, at least at a surface level, which is really interesting to me. But honestly, at the end of the day, especially if you're doing reporting, if you're doing investigative journalism, do it right, do it correctly with the information that you can find, and come and consider the alternatives. That way you're covering your own behind, right? You're covering your own rear end. And if you're just going to be ugly online and speculate about how someone was kept alive on life support and hyper conspiracy theory territory, just kindly don't, right? Don't do it. That's all I got for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one.